Just Some Podcast Media.
The thoughts and opinions on Just Some Podcast are of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of organizations that employ them or they volunteer for. They are also not responsible for spontaneous black holes or nuclear wars that may occur. You have been warned.
Welcome, everybody, to another fun-filled, exciting, and Facebook Live episode of Just Some Podcast. This is Tom.
Hey, this is Ben. Tom, how you doing, bud?
I am doing absolutely fantastic, and the usual Just Some Podcast flavor. We're a few minutes late due to technical technical difficulties, but I mean, that's what we do.
I mean, that is what we do, yeah. And it's okay. But, Tom, my question for you, before we get too far into anything, because we really haven't told anybody what we're doing on this wonderful episode, do you think there's a parallel universe somewhere where the name of our show is Just a Podcast instead of Just Some Podcast?
I had never considered that till you just said it. But based on the information I shouldn't say the information going into this episode. The information reviewed for this episode, I would have to say I give a full 2 thumbs up to the notion that there is just a podcast out there.
I think so, and I think we still run that, and there's probably some people who are like arguing about it now.
Yes, they're asking right now, is there another universe where there's a Just Some Podcast?
Yes, exactly. So, how's your week been, sir?
Busy, but good. Just seeing a mass influx of patients. I don't know where they're all coming from, but I'm glad they're wanting to be seen, and we're trying to take care of as many as possible. How are things where you're at?
Very busy, which is a good thing. I mean, I'm not complaining. Generally we kind of see a dip off in June and July, with people going on vacation and people, at the lake and everything, but really haven't seen much dip recently. It's still been just pretty busy.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but it can be a pain in the butt sometimes when you feel yourself dipping ever more into the black hole that is getting buried into charts. But again, wouldn't have it any other way, so glad to have the problem.
Well, so I alluded earlier to the, alternate universe of Just a Podcast instead of Just Some Podcast. So why don't you break it down for everybody as to what we're going to be covering tonight?
Well, we're going to be talking about what is widely known, at least in our universe, as the Mandela effect. And so a little brief explanation of what that is. It started in roughly 2009 when a reporter was talking at a conference and mentioned Nelson Mandela and his funeral. But multiple people came up to this person and said, I remember him dying in the 80s. And obviously the rest of the crowd was like, nope. But such a large group of people came up and were adamant that they remembered the events behind Nelson Mandela so differently that this reporter, and I can't remember her name right now, started a website and started talking about the Mandela effect. And people started coming forwards with more and more and more examples until finally a really good friend of mine, Matt Mendoza, said, hey, have you ever heard of, and I'm sure we'll get into it in a minute, and he brought something up, and I was like, yeah, I absolutely knew for sure. I knew the answer until I Googled it. And basically the internet told me I was wrong. And so I got sucked into the Mandela effect myself.
And there you were. And it's, you know,
there I was.
it's a rabbit hole, especially a lot of these that we kind of looked at and got into. Now, see, the story that I had heard or read was that it got its name from a person named by the name of Fiona Broom, who
Yes,
is
that's
identified
her
as
name.
a paranormal consultant. And she remembers Mandela dying in the 1980s in prison, although he lived until 2013. And so her speculation is that we're in alternate universes, and started the website and kind of went from there. Yeah.
So, and again, perhaps, you know, paranormal investigator, but, you know, I'd also read she was a reporter. So maybe she was reporting on paranormal events. That part I don't know. And honestly, it's kind of moot at this point. The fact is that she coined this term. Excuse me. She coined this term, and now it's really taken off. And there is this plethora of theories and information. And I think it's going to be fun to dig into both things that we may or may not remember accurately. And they really fall into like three categories for me. And I don't know, doing research, how you figured it out, but for me, there was things like, I'm like, no, I don't remember it that way. Or I agree with how history is telling me I should, you know. Then I found the ones where I was like, no, I absolutely disagree. You know, like that is not how my childhood was. I don't remember that. But then I found a lot of them that I could explain. Like in my head, I was like, oh, okay, I could see, like, I don't remember it that way, or I do remember it that way, but I could easily see both sides of the equation. So it was a fun journey. Honestly, it's through your memories and your childhood, as well as, you know, research for a show. So I had a good time doing it.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting, definitely. And a lot of these I did know, but still some of them were just kind of odd. And we're going to get into those. There's also, I'm going to try, I found an experiment, and we all know how much we like to experiment on Tom. So we're going to do this experiment later and see if we can induce a false memory in Tom, which I think will be interesting. What do you think about that?
I am excited, and I'm sure I'm going to end up looking like a fool. And as we have found in our previous shows where I'm in pain, that equals ratings.
It does. It absolutely
does. People love seeing me hurt or in pain or talking about being in pain. It's quite amazing, to be honest. And I also thought it was really interesting. You know, we still don't know. Well, we don't seem to know a lot about the human brain. And I don't mean you and I mean, you know, medicine. But what we do know about how memories are formed, and then seeing how some of these could be misconstrued, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Though I will say there's a few I'm like, there's just not an answer.
Yeah.
Because and for me, here's the difference, is that there are some things I'm like, I'm not sure, but I really distinctly remember. But there's a few of them, and I'm sure it's the first one we're going to talk about, that I'm just ironclad. I'm like, no, bro, I know what I know, and that wasn't it. And that's what blows it apart for me, is, like I said, most of these I could concede to an argument that, sure, maybe I misunderstood it. I don't think so, but it's possible. But there's a couple I'm just like, kiss my ass, I know better. And they're just there, though. They're just there.
Well, hopefully our audience will jump in with some comments as we get into some of those about their thoughts on them, if they believe that they are what we've seen in the past, or what we have now in this reality, or what the case may be. But Tom, before we get into that, let's jump over into our story that you may have missed. Are you ready for that, sir?
I absolutely am.
So the story that I found is that the title is "Restrictions Are Easing Up, but Should You Ease Up on Your Hygiene Practices?" And I don't think this means like wiping your ass and things of that nature. I think it's more
I'm glad
like,
you clarified that.
Just wanted to make sure. But, it says the United States, the United Kingdom, several other countries are kind of gradually easing our pandemic restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
The CDC has, made it so where you don't have to wear a mask inside if you're vaccinated with other individuals, things of that nature. The United Kingdom has had several similar guidelines, but the talk about ongoing adherence as far as hygiene is important. Because again, we are still, it says, although vaccines are effective in preventing COVID-19 and possibly reducing the risk of spreading COVID, it remains unclear how long they are effective for and just how much they may reduce the risk for further transmission. And again, vaccine rollouts are helping, but we're still in a pandemic. And it is including a steady stream of new variants continues to circulate globally, causing new COVID-19 cases. So again, wash your damn hands, wear your mask when you need to, all that stuff that we say at the end of this. What are your thoughts on some of that, sir?
Well, it kind of hits close to home for me currently because I actually, and I won't mention any names, but I just spoke to a friend of mine who was fully vaccinated, is a ER nurse, and they tested positive for COVID.
Oh, wow.
They are one of the small percentage of people that even with the COVID-19 vaccine, they were still susceptible and they came down with the infection. Luckily, everything turned out well. They didn't, have any major side effects or damage, but it still really rang true. Like, this is still there. Like, it's still out there. It's still causing problems. And I just am terrified, to be honest, in some ways, that if we don't continue to take this serious, we're going to look at a third, fourth, wave and deal with the repercussions of all that.
Well, I mean, I certainly hope not, but yeah, I could understand your concerns, obviously. And, I hope that people continue to get vaccinated and that we can kind of continue to ease restrictions and, quote unquote, get back to a normal life, whatever normal may be.
Yeah. What is normal anymore now?
It's a setting on a washing machine. That's what I tell my patients frequently, but it's not all it is anymore. So
yeah.
Well, Tom, normally here's where we would take a break and we would talk about our sponsor, or we'd at least play the commercial for the sponsor. But it's live, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to just kind of talk briefly. I've actually gotten to do some financial planning with Scott, and it's been great. It really kind of opens up your eyes to a lot of questions that you may not have thought about, or some situations that you may not have thought about. And apparently, my collection of Pogs from the 90s and my Saved by the Bell that are all on VHS tapes is not going to be enough planning for my retirement. So, who knew?
Yeah. I'm planning on talking to Scott myself, and I'm just wondering if the once a week I buy lottery tickets is going to hold firm as a viable retirement plan.
I'm going to bet not, but
you bet that until I win.
True. But for the rest of our listeners that are out there, Scott can check your vitals. He does work primarily with nurse practitioner students. So you can find him on his website. It is mynpadvisor.com/podcast. Again, that's mynpadvisor.com/podcast. Tell him Just Some Podcast sent you. Tom, let's get into some of these Mandela effects and let's have some fun with this.
I'm ready.
Should we talk about the one that as you say kind of started it for you? You know what? For a lot of people, or do you want to wait on that one?
I am fine with starting with it because that's like the big one, and we're going to spend some time talking about it. However, I do have, and I had to pull it up on a separate electronic device just so I can track everything. But there are several. I'm like, yeah, we're going to have to talk about this, but I'm good with that. Let's start with the Bears.
The Bears, yeah.
The Bears.
Tom, apparently, in this reality that we live in currently, and according to everything that we are able to find, it has always been the Berenstain Bears, Stain.
Incorrect. You can spell it all you want, but it's a false spelling to me.
I understand that. That is the line that is being toted that it is the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstein Bears. I'm in agreement with you. I remember the Berenstein Bears.
Yeah, so just because I have all the exact spelling, this is the way they're trying to. This is how the Matrix is trying to tell me that it's spelled Berenstain, and I distinctly remember it being spelled as Berenstein. And as I said before, a good friend of mine, Matt, one day just texted me. He's like, "Hey, do you remember the Berenstein Bears?" I was like, "Yeah." I think everybody in that roughly 30 to 50-year-old age range, somewhere around in there, 35, 45, whatever you want to say, they vaguely remember, but they remember these books. And I do. I remember those books very, very well as a kid. And he's like, "No." I'm like, "What do you mean, no?" And then it became by the way, that's not what it's called. And so then he started to describe to me, the thing that we're talking about today, that history actually shows that it's always been spelled with an A. I'm like, bullshit. I remember, and he's like, "No." And so I started Googling it. I started the rabbit hole myself, and lo and behold, they're trying to tell me that it's spelled with an A. And this is obviously one of the ones where I'm like, no.
Right.
I don't care. I don't care what type of memory issue people are trying to say there is. I don't believe myself and a billion other people got this one wrong. I just don't. Like, there's clearly something wrong here. That to me.
Well, and maybe there is, but apparently, no, Tom. It's the Berenstain Bears.
Incorrect, sir.
Even though I think there's even an episode of The Simpsons that they hold up a book that says the Berenstain Bears. So I mean, you can hold on to that as far as your possible proof.
When it comes to time traveling and predicting the future, the Simpsons have pretty much shown that they got the lock on that. So if they're saying it's Berenstain Bears, then it's clearly what it is.
That is true, which is a little weird if you think about it, though.
But this goes back to me to one of those, because if you do 10,000 episodes, like whatever they're at, 30 years, if you say enough stuff, even if it's wacky, some of it's gonna hit.
True.
Though I will say they did an episode where they showed Donald Trump coming down an escalator to announce that he was running for president. And then that's what he did, like 25 years later. I'm like, that's a little creepy. But, I don't think he did that for marketing. So I'm like, oh, but yeah, I just distinctly remember being a child. I remember these books. And again, as we're going to talk about with memory, issues, maybe I'm convincing myself of that, but I don't. Like, there are some things I'm like, well, maybe, but this is not one of them. This is one of no, that was an E, bro. I know what I know, and that was an E.
Well, how about this one? And I'm sure you may have seen this one too. Rich Uncle Moneybags, the Monopoly Man.
Mm-hmm.
No monocle. I can vaguely remember, though, the monocle.
Exactly. No, this is another one that I stand pretty firm on.
Matter of fact, I think it was even I think Jim Carrey did a bit in like Ace Ventura, maybe, where he
yes,
he had a monocle and he acted like the Monopoly Man. I mean,
yes, I think he even said that, "I'm the Monopoly Man."
Right.
It throws like the little guy over his shoulder and starts acting like the old rich guy on his shoulders was a fox, and parading him around.
Yep.
And it was weird. So in my research, I somehow got onto there's entire multiple subreddits about the Mandela effect. Mm-hmm. And one of the posts I was reading was a young lady who talked about, she grew up as an only kid. So she said, heck, sometimes she played Monopoly against herself. She just happened to be good at it. So that's the game she stuck to. And she was like, no, I played that game for hours, for years, hours per week for multiple years. She's like, I am telling you, there was a monocle on that guy's face. It was on the get out of jail, like one of the cards, like
Yeah.
across boardwalk. She's like, that guy, clear as day, had a monocle on his face. And this is one of those ones where I distinctly remember, and I was like, oh, do I really remember enough? I don't think I'd fight you over it. Berenstain Bears, I'd fight anybody. You could put the president in front of me. I'm like, I want to fight you over this. Like, I'll punch you in the face. I'm like, this is clearly Berenstain Bears territory. This is another one I feel really strongly about, but I'm like, there's that 1% of doubt. But I really liked Monopoly growing up as a kid. As a matter of fact, that family reunion is now barred from us playing Monopoly. So, there's some hostility in our family. We have issues. But yeah, we've played a lot of Monopoly, and I really remember the monocle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Another one that really blew my mind, Tom, and I don't know if you've seen this one or not, the Ford logo.
No, I haven't seen this one.
The Ford logo, there's a curly wave at the end of the F, like the line that goes through to draw the F.
Uh-huh.
But most people don't think that it's there.
Oh, that's one of those ones I'm like, yeah, I own a couple Fords. So yeah, it's there.
I don't remember. I can vividly remember it just being a line straight across for the F, not a curly Q line.
I'm pretty sure I remember. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding because I'm not looking at the same picture you're looking at, but I really remember that curl being there. Well,
here, let me, I'll send you this picture. I'll text it to you.
Okay.
And we can go on to the next one and then you can look at it.
Well, let me do one here. So this is one of the ones where I, again, like the Ford symbol, I don't remember, is a lot of people were flipping out and saying that Jif peanut butter was actually at some point Jiffy.
Yep. And I think I can remember that. But I mean, again, that's not one that I would fight you over.
Yeah.
But
yeah. But see, that's the thing is I remember as Jif, J-I-F. I don't remember it ever being the full Jiffy. Now, I remember people, and see, this is one of those ones where I could see how there's a mistake because most people wouldn't say Jif. They'd say, give me some Jiffy peanut butter. So, because that's my preferred brand, actually. So it's one of those things like I can understand how people would or would not think that, but I only remember the 3-letter Jif.
I don't know.
You vaguely remember like Jiffy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do.
But see, and again, this might be one of those schema because there's Skippy peanut butter.
True, and so you made you're kind of
and so that's what I'm saying is this is one of those ones where I don't remember it that way, but I could see 50-50. Like, oh, I could see, but I think I know why. I think this is one of those memory tricks for this one.
What about Mr. Rogers' theme song? It even got
blew my mind.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the lyrics, as we all remember it, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Right?
Yeah. And that's it. I sang that song a lot when I was a kid.
And
I drank a lot of grape Kool-Aid out of a glass watching that show.
Well, you drank the wrong Kool-Aid, apparently.
Incorrect, sir.
The lyric is actually, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Look at that. Even Mr. Rogers got affected by the Mandela effect.
Yeah. Again, I don't buy it. This. I'm telling you, there's this. Again, that's iconic. I sang that song to my child.
Yeah.
Like, don't come back and tell me that it's not this. It's this.
No.
Sorry. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now look, you're.
Well, that's just a miscue on. I'm just saying. I know what I know, and that's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's not
a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Yep.
Yes, exactly. All right. So here's another one from childhood, and I feel very strongly about, but I wasn't. Again, this one's even less like than the Monopoly guy. I would be like, oh, I'm more like 95%. So that's a larger margin of error, but I still feel really strongly about it. And I even asked some other people, and they're like, no, I remember it the way you remember it. Curious George.
Yeah.
The monkey?
Yep.
Tail or no tail?
I can remember a tail, but I know the answer to this.
Yes.
No tail.
Yes. And people are trying to tell me that Curious George doesn't have a tail. And I'm like, he is a damn monkey.
I said, what kind of monkey don't got a tail?
Exactly. I didn't say chimpanzee or gorilla. I said monkey. He's a monkey. Monkeys have tails. Curious George is a monkey. Ergo, tail. And they're trying. I'm like, that's bullshit. I know he had a tail. Don't tell me about that. So, see, it's getting thick. It's getting thick with the how things go.
What about Risky Business, Tom? Have you seen?
So, yes. So this is one of the ones I went down when I saw some explanation on it. I was like, oh, that does make sense. And it has been quite a while since I've seen that movie. Great movie. If you've never seen Risky Business, you absolutely should.
You should. And you know, with movies, I can almost understand because you're pulling out small bits of
a flash
movie. That yeah. So, I mean, some of these I can understand, but I still vividly remember this one.
So go ahead and tell everybody that's listening.
So there's a scene where Tom Cruise comes sliding out. He's wearing a button-down shirt. He's wearing white underwear and a pair of sunglasses. But, oh, wait, he's not wearing sunglasses, apparently. But see, I can vividly remember the sunglasses.
So first of all, so can I. But there are also multiple scenes for what I was reading, like explaining how this one could have been mistaken, where he is wearing the iconic black Ray-Ban sunglasses that we remember him wearing. Well, he did wear them, just not in that scene. I remember it the way you do. I really do. But then reading it, I was like, oh, crap. Is that what it is? Like, you're just thinking of other parts of the movie. So your brain just automatically fills in that part of the story, which again can be a large, issue with the Mandela effect. And that's one of the things that can get you is that people start going, oh, I know this, but what they're really doing is they're filling in parts of the story with their brain from the other parts, which is a common memory error. And that's part of what people are contributing the Mandela effect to. And there's a term for it that I'm looking for. And if I was a prepared podcast host, I would already had it.
Well, I'd seen a couple of things as far as what could potentially cause Mandela effect. So we'll go into that and then we can jump back into a few more.
Mm-hmm.
They say the one way to describe it is collective false memories. It's a large group of people collectively always say a particular saying or memory a certain way, when in reality, it's in truth is different from the memory. Conspiracy theorists believe that the Mandela effect is an example of alternate universes present in society. However, there's some other explanations that can cause the falseness. One of them is confabulation.
That's the word. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, which is honest lying. It's basically a person creates a false memory without intending to lie or deceive others. And instead, they're attempting to fill in the gaps in their own memory. It says many examples of Mandela effect are close to the original or true memory. Some researchers believe that people, or even large groups of people, use confabulation to remember what they feel like is the most likely set of events.
And that fits in with one of the other articles I was reading on this, which was really interesting. And it's about how we form memories, not just that your brain will fill in parts to create that gaps, which honestly, we have talked about on this show before, where if you don't know exactly, your brain will start telling you things and you just kind of fill in the gaps. That's just how your brain works. And we've talked about that. It was really interesting to learn about, and I'm mispronouncing this, but schemas. SCHEMAs. And so one of the understandings we're having about how the human brain works as far as not only making memories, but retrieving them, is it doesn't make a whole new neuron for every memory. That's just not how it works. So we'll say US presidents, for example, because that was a really good example I read about. You don't individually make a new neuron for each president. What happens is you make a couple neurons and then you store everything you know about US presidents in those neurons. So when your brain goes, hey, I need to access something about a US president, it goes to that schema or that set of neurons. And so what can happen is when you have a bunch of memories floating in there, your brain goes, risky business, he was wearing sunglasses, that's in the risky business schema. And so your brain just goes, oh, he was wearing sunglasses in the dancing scene when he may not have. And so that is a really interesting way about how your memory works. And I learned a lot about memory reading about the Mandela effect. And I did not realize there was, that advancement we had figured out, like, hey, there's whole pockets of your brain that store specific groups of memories. And then like a card catalog, your brain just starts picking out from that individual schema. So that was a really cool thing to learn about while researching for this.
That is kind of interesting. The other thing that I read that I thought was kind of interesting, and there's a lot of controversy behind this, which is basically it's false memories. And there's this does not have DSM-5 criteria. It is not currently recognized as an ICD-10 or as a psychiatric illness in any way, but
psychiatric illness. Yeah. Mandela effect will end up being one.
Well, no, what I'm talking about is false memory syndrome.
No, I know, but I'm just saying eventually we're going to have to, this is going to be an ICD-10 code.
You think so?
Yes, I think so. There's one or two separate ICD-10 codes for duck bites. So I'm fairly certain Mandela effect is going to find its way into ICD-10.
Well, I mean, it very well could. Yeah. So, false memory syndrome is a condition in which a person's identity and relationships are affected by false memories, recollections that are factually incorrect yet strongly believed. There's actually a false memory syndrome foundation that was popularized, and it basically says that individuals can hold false memories, and the role that outside influence can play on their formation is widely accepted by scientists. However, again, it is not currently recognized as a psychiatric illness. It is not in an ICD-10 or DSM-5. So, and I said there's a lot of controversy with that because it talks about sexual abuse cases and things of that nature, and are we subjecting people, basically are we implanting false memories versus them truly having false memories? So it was interesting to read.
And again, now that we're starting to learn more about how memories are formed, I can see how some of that all fits together.
So let's see a few more. Let's jump into some more of these Mandela effects, Tom. The other ones, the fruit of the loom.
Yeah, that's a big one for me, and that's one I feel really strongly about.
So I remember the logo having the cornucopia with the fruit spilling out of it.
Yep.
However, the correct way that it is just basically a pile of fruit. It does not have the cornucopia there at all.
I don't believe that. I used to have Fruit of the Loom underwear for a long time, and I'm telling you, that cornucopia, that was on the tag, that was part of this whole brand. I don't believe it's just too ingrained in my brain. And there are, like I said, even the risky business thing, I can I feel like I remember it that way, but I can understand this is not one of them. I'm like, no, why would my brain put an object in there? No. There was a cornucopia in there.
Yeah. I don't understand how it would be different. I guess. I don't know. I know we have a bunch of movie line ones that we want to do too. The other one though, that I found that just really made me question my sanity and reality as I know it.
Okay.
Ed McMahon.
Yeah. I know where you're going. Go. Yeah.
So it talks about there's vivid memories of Ed McMahon, showing up on people's doorsteps with Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. And, there was such that tie to Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse. You'd get that envelope and be like, oh, Ed McMahon saying I'm going to win $20 million.
Yeah.
He was not part of Publishers Clearinghouse. According to current reality, which is so weird for me to say anyway, but
yeah,
He actually endorsed the American Family Publishers, which is a rival sweepstake promotion, and he never once appeared on camera for it.
And that does not make any sense because, like, that's what I associated Ed McMahon with. Like, I'm old enough, I remember the Johnny Carson show.
Right.
But that's what I remember Ed McMahon about. I mean, I remember there's jokes about that in movies, like Ed McMahon's going to bring me my money.
Yeah.
Like how
from
did
Publishers Clearinghouse?
Yes. So that's a very vivid. Oh, sorry. We have some comments. Just stop me for a second. I'll talk about it here in a minute. But yeah, the Ed McMahon is just ingrained in my head as with the Publishers Clearinghouse. And if you win, you got to meet Ed McMahon when he brought you that big check.
But apparently we're all wrong, Tom. I don't know.
Well, just so everybody who's going to be listening to this at a later date or is just hearing it, there is video of this going out live on Facebook. And in the background, one of my pictures is crooked. And someone took the time to comment on how the crooked picture in the background is driving everybody crazy. So I thought that was really funny. It just made me stop and laugh for a second. So thank you, Jason. Now everybody's going to get to hear about it. And now people with OCD are going to have to sit there and imagine it, which is probably an even worse torture than just seeing it. They have to sit there and imagine their own crooked picture. Now here's a good one. And this is not one of the ones I was like, oh, I remember it one way, but it says it's not, and it could go either way for me. The show Sex and the City.
Yeah, and again, it's not one I would fight you over by any means. But...
Yes, but I distinctly remember, and I watched some episodes, on HBO, and I just swore up and down it was Sex in the City.
Yeah,
but they're saying no, I made that all up. It's Sex and the City, which honestly makes sense, but to me, both made sense. So I guess I never questioned it.
Yeah.
Yes. But, and perhaps this is one of those, everybody said it around you and we just said Sex in the City. So I just thought it was Sex in the City, but no, it's like, no, it's clearly Sex and the City and you're crazy.
Well, Tom, I think one of the most famous lines of any movie.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. And, I got the nice asthma, Darth Vader voice anyway. But, it's the, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not.
It is no.
I am your father. So this is one of those rare cases where I know people said it was Luke, I am your father. And honestly, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And there's parts of me that I would say Luke is your father. But no, when you watch the movie, I don't get me wrong. This is one of those I remember. Luke is your father. But again, I think that's because you repeat it so often. That's what it becomes. But when you watch the movie, no, it is no, I am your father. And then Luke's like, no, and starts screaming to the heavens. And then, that movie is roughly over. That wasn't the one I thought you were going to say. Here's one that blew my mind. One of the most iconic movies sayings ever apparently is completely made up.
Okay.
In Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter apparently never says hello, Clarice.
No, you gotta say it like hello, Clarice. You gotta.
Yeah, I can't. I would do it. I can't. There's no way I would do it any justice. So I just, they are trying to tell me. This is one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know, bro. Like, I feel pretty strongly about this one. That he never says hello, Clarice to her, that he just says good morning. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense in my brain. Like, no. I'm like, I don't even know how I could have misheard that. Like, it was hello, Clarice.
Yeah, it was hello, Clarice. And,
yes.
Like, I want to eat I ate his liver with some fava beans and an ice canter.
Yeah, next thing you're gonna say, he said it was with lima beans, and I'm gonna be like, look, you're a lying jerk, and I'll punch you in the face if somebody tries to tell me he didn't say Chianti beans. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, but no, they're telling me that he never says that he just says good morning. And that's the crazy part about the Mandela effect for those that are going to watch it later, and they're gonna be like, well, no, it does say good morning, but that's the thing, is that if we're all right, the people that believe the theory, then we're in a parallel universe. So I can't go back and prove it to you anyways.
True.
So that is the truly maddening thing to me about this, is even though collectively we all remember it some way, there's no way for me to prove what I know.
Because we're in an alternate reality.
Yes, because we have switched timelines according to the theory.
The other one that one of the iconic lines, life is like a box of chocolates.
Yeah, this one, again, I'm willing to punch people in the face over.
Life is like a box of chocolates is not the line. The line actually is life was like a box of chocolates, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, first of all, that doesn't make any sense. And second of all, again, I don't know who is trying to tell me that life was like a box of chocolates. You, sir, are wrong. And here is a little known fact. There was those restaurants called the Bubba Gump Shrimp Companies. I actually think there's still some around.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Towards the end of your meal, sometimes the waiters and stuff like that would come and ask your table some questions from the show. Right. And of course, most of the time people got them wrong, so they just went on. What I found out was, and this was at the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company in downtown Honolulu, Hawaii, was that if you answer enough right, they go get the next person and the next person and the next person until somebody way up the chain comes out and asks you some ridiculous questions about that show. And I was really good at remembering stuff from Forrest Gump because I really like that movie. And I will tell you right now, that is complete BS. It is life is like a box of chocolates. As a matter of fact, they never even asked that as a question, as a trivia thing. You know why? Because they know it's wrong. It's life is like a box of chocolates. If they had said, sir, you got that question wrong, was like a box of chocolates, I would stand up and say, no, sir, throw my food down and walk out of the restaurant. Like, no, that doesn't even make, like you said, it doesn't even make sense.
No, it doesn't
even make sense. So it's another one of those things that I can't reconcile it because it's so deeply ingrained.
Yeah,
like the Berenstain Bears. This is one of those ones where I'm like, no, I've heard that line myself out of Tom Hanks's face. Like, it is life is like a box of chocolates. Because that's what he's talking about. My mom always said.
Yeah, and why would
life is like a so why would his mom say something in the present or presently to a child in the past? Like, no, it doesn't even make sense to try and explain it like that. Like, hey, son, I need you to do something past tense, but do it now. My kid would just look at me like, you're a moron. And I'd be like, yeah, because only a moron would think life was like a box of chocolates was the correct line.
I like how you vapor log there. You're like,
no. And I'm like, my brain just stopped. It's like, stop, Tom. You can't do this. You can't. You're gonna, and it's correct. I can't. So here's one that blew my mind.
Okay.
And there is a caveat to it. But I'm like, the song "We Are the Champions" by Queen. Have you read this one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What's the famous last words of Freddie Mercury singing that song?
Of the world.
Every person I know, when you're singing it in the shower, that's what you belled out at the end. Of the world. Apparently that never happened.
Yeah, which is weird.
I'm like, how could every person that's ever heard Queen sing know that after you say "we are the champions" on the last verse, you belled out "we are of the world"? but they're trying to tell you that's not it. So here's the caveat, is that apparently they're saying he did say it one time on a live rendition of it, but that's it. And I'm like, well, nope, that's not, they didn't apply the live version on the radio. I know what I heard singing it in my car at full volume while I'm flying down the highway, and it was of the world. And you're trying to tell me it isn't, and that is also incorrect.
Completely and totally incorrect. I agree.
Completely
it is
and
out
totally.
of the world. Yeah. So Tom, I don't know if you looked at this, because we're kind of getting toward needing to wrap things up here before we get into
I don't think so.
Experiment with you.
I don't think so. I think we got a lot to talk about here, Ben.
Have you seen, and this was a series of tweets that happened in 2019 by a gentleman by the name of Nick Hinton. His Twitter handle is at Nick Hinton, Hintonn. It's a conspiracy theory that the world ended in 2012. And this is why we've had all these Mandela effects, basically. So in 2012, the CERN finally found the Higgs boson particle.
Yes.
Otherwise known as the God
particle. Yeah.
And Stephen Hawking was quoted as predicted that this could destroy the universe, or in his own words, cause the universe to, quote, undergo a catastrophic vacuum decay, unquote. And this gentleman, Nick Hinton, says, well, what had happened had we destroyed the universe? Did we create a black hole that got us sucked in and nobody's really noticed? And he says there's an old cliche argument that nothing has, quote unquote, felt right since 2012. And so then he goes on to talk about a lot of the Mandela effects, like the Berenstain bears versus the Berenstein bears, Looney Tunes, things of that nature. But, and then the other one that I thought was interesting, the Statue of Liberty. The people have posted pictures of looking out from the torch of the Statue of Liberty, but that the Statue of Liberty's torch has actually been closed to the public since World War I.
Whoa. Okay. So I was gonna say, I know that there's an observatory up there, but I understood that for a long period of time it had been shut down, but I was thinking like 80s. I wasn't thinking World War One.
So, their speculation will basically be that we have that in 2012, somehow the God particle has ripped us into a different timeline.
So discovering the particle that presents mass, I understand the CERN but I've heard it for other things. I've never heard it for the Higgs boson, which again makes me think, but for that whole theory. And again, I'm not a trained astrophysicist. I was gonna say I'm not a trained astrophysicist, but I'm gonna say that I don't think discovering a Higgs boson is the same as, creating a black hole and sucking the universe backwards in time. Like it doesn't there's not enough meat on that bone for me to go, that's possible. It seems more likely to me that it was when people started drinking seltzer beer.
No, it was well before that.
Yeah, no, seltzer beer is what did it. Or Harambe. I also heard that one. After they shot Harambe in the zoo.
No, it was again before that. I mean, I can remember the Berenstain Bears thing well before that.
Okay, I'm just telling you things I've read. People were like, well, ever since
2012 is when the world split and we're in an alternate universe from that point on.
Okay, but again, hold on. We'll talk about this off the air because otherwise I'm going to get on a whole tangent about astrophysics here. But I'm just saying, I don't find a lot of credibility just based on, again, a trivial amount to what there really is. Okay, the amount of knowledge I have compared to what actually exists on CERN is minuscule, and I get that, but I'm still willing to bet that finding the Higgs boson isn't what caused me to not remember a cornucopia in the background of the Fruit of the Looms. I'm just willing to take that bet.
And the official story is that the CERN super collider is not responsible for the rip in the space-time continuum.
Well, of course, CERN's going to say that.
It's not just CERN; it's everybody. Other physicists come out and basically just said this is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So what do you believe? I mean, I don't side with conspiracy theorists, but you got to admit, shit's been a little weird since 2012.
Okay, shit has been weird, and let's go over to this one. This one blew my mind. I want to talk about this one, just like the We Are the World, or not We Are the World, Champions of the World.
Yeah,
there was a famous cartoon character to teach you about fire safety.
Yes,
as a child. What was that character's name?
Smokey the Bear.
Yeah, except they're trying to tell me that's not what his name was.
It's Smokey the Bear.
It is Smokey the Bear. You and I both know that's Smokey the Bear. Every legitimate human being on Earth knows it's Smokey the Bear. But they're trying to say his name was Smokey Bear. Now, this is one of those times where I'm like, I'm willing to concede that maybe, well, I'm not willing to concede. I'm saying I can understand how this is one of those examples where maybe we added but I also don't buy it, because this has also been ubiquitous. Like, every person knows Smokey the Bear.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, it's always been Smokey the Bear. Don't tell me it's Smokey Bear, because that's not no person's ever called him Smokey Bear. It's been Smokey the Bear since he was first put on a piece of paper. So
Smokey the Bear.
Yeah, exactly. So you can call him whatever you want. You could call him, but he's still Smokey the Bear. Like, that's why I'm calling him. I'm calling him right.
What about the Lindbergh baby, Tom?
That's one of those, I don't know enough about the Lindbergh baby situation. I mean, I know exactly what is getting at, but I'm not as heavily invested in the Lindbergh baby to make this. But go ahead and tell them.
Well, and the only reason, there's a bunch of jokes that are out there, like, I think you can back to like Jim Carrey, may have been a movie he was in where he's like, I took the Lindbergh baby. Yeah. Where he was like, admitting to shit. So, Charles Lindbergh's 20-month-old child was abducted in 1932, becoming a widespread media sensation. There are lots of people who still speculate that case is yet to be solved. Although apparently that's not true. The child's remains were found a couple months later. The killer was convicted and then put on death row. But again, people seem to remember that the Lindbergh baby kidnapping was never solved.
Yes. And honestly, that's what I was going to say, is that's how I remember it, is that nobody ever found him. But at the same time, I'm not really that well versed on the Lindbergh baby. So could they have found him and I just didn't know it? Sure. I was willing to concede that one. That one fell squarely in the could be. I just don't know enough. Here's one. I know how I say it, but I can see how maybe it got misconstrued, is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay. What does she say when she looks at the mirror?
Oh, I do remember this one now. Okay. I remember Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
And so does every other human being on Earth that has ever watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But what they're trying to tell me is that actually the line was magic mirror on the wall. And so it's one of those, I'm willing to go, perhaps we misheard it. But I have sisters. I've seen a lot of Disney movies, including Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, lots of times. And I just distinctly remember it was always mirror, mirror on the wall. But yet I can see how you could hear magic mirror on the wall and say, just in your head, say mirror, mirror. But it still just feels wrong. Even though I'm willing to accept that it's possibly wrong, it just doesn't feel right to say magic mirror on the wall versus mirror, mirror.
I agree with you. I agree. You got any more big ones that you want to talk about before we try to induce?
Two more. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. 3 more, but they're all food related. Okay, so we can go through these ones quick.
You're good. Yeah, go ahead.
Spell Oscar Mayer.
My baloney has a first name. It's Oscar. My baloney has a second name. It's Meyer, I think.
That's how I would say it too, but history is trying to tell me that it's Mayer. I'm like, bull crap. I have sang that song out a bunch of times in my head. It's Meyer. But no, they're saying that's wrong. This AE juxtaposition happened again, just like Berenstain Bears. They're trying to take it from our baloney now too. I just don't get it. This one I'm willing to fight you on.
Okay.
Kit Kat.
Yeah.
They're saying, do you remember it with or without a hyphen?
I seem to remember a hyphen, yeah.
Yeah. And every person I know, including my wife, looked at me like, no, there's a hyphen. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, they're saying there isn't. But there is or was. If I go buy one tomorrow and it's not there, I will throw a fit in the store because I'm telling you, I've eaten a lot of Kit Kats and I'm telling you, there's distinctly remembering there being a hyphen in Kit Kat, but they're saying there isn't. And the last one, and this one also just screwed me up. Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
Even when you say Cheez-Its,
you
say it's.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's Cheez-It. I'm like, there's a Z at the end of that. And nope. They're holding on tight to there's no Z. And I'm like, but there is a Z. There is a Z. I did find it interesting. One last little side note, and then we can get to the experiment. So
you're good.
Is and I've never heard of this, and some of these I'd heard of before. But I find it interesting that today is the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square. We're probably never going to get the show on the air now because I just mentioned that. But today is the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And there are people that remember the video, the famous Tank Man video.
Yeah.
They remember it different. I read it. I read the Reddits. I read the posts where people were like, no, I don't remember him just standing there. Like, I remember him like running off and all this other stuff. I'm like, then you saw a different video than what the rest of the world remembers. I mean, if you ever saw the Man in the Mirror video by Michael Jackson, you saw that footage. And so many people remember it different, and that blows my mind. But again, I was a kid when that one came out, so I was like, I remember it. I saw that video a bunch of times, but I wasn't willing to like stand firm on it. Like I was like Cheez-Its. I'm like, someone needs a throat punch if they come at me and say Cheez-It. Nah, bro. You're getting a teeth clicker. You come at me and don't say a Z at the end of that. I'm just throwing it out there.
Just throwing it out there, huh?
Just saying. It's a thing. All right, sir. So is there any other big ones?
No, I don't believe that I had any more.
So again, for the people that are going to be listening to this that are not watching it live, Jason, a long-time listener, no-time caller, is commenting on the live cast again, and he says he remembers Mayer, but he's full of baloney, so perhaps that's why he's incorrect on that one. And then he says, do not go buy a Kit Kat. There's no hyphen. I'm not saying, Jason, that there is not currently a hyphen. What I am saying is that me, Ben, my wife, and every other person I know, when asked about it, go, oh, there's a hyphen. Like we all distinctly remember it. So yes, that's the Mandela effect, effect. There you go. Of what we remember is not matching up to what we're physically holding, seeing, or listening to. So I know you think you remember that, but you're also like, Ben, do you remember how old Jason is? I'm thinking based on that picture, he's like 74. So I don't know that his memory is the most appropriate for witness/evidence.
Well, speaking of memory, Tom, because we're going to segue away from insulting Jason. So I found an interesting experiment, and I thought we would try it on you to see if we can induce a false memory in you. So this is the Dees-Roediger-McDermott task, And this is a false memory paradigm in which subjects are presented with lists of semantically related words and encoding. After delay, they're asked to recall or recognize these words. In the recognition memory version of the tasks, they're asked whether they remember previously presented words. And that's kind of what I explained to you briefly earlier.
Yeah.
And you have not looked at this. None of this is, this is legit. We're
live on the air. Yeah. Yep. I had no pre-planning. He just told me he was going to pull a test on me. That's all he really said.
So we're going to see if we can get Tom to falsely remember stuff. So Tom, I'm going to give you a list of words, and I believe there's 15 of them on each set. 8, 9, 10. Yep. Okay. So there's 15. So I'm going to give you 2 sets of 15 words each.
Okay.
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 And then we'll go on to the next step. So I'm going to read the first 15. There'll be about a 12-second break, and then we'll read the next 15.
Okay. And I'm just supposed to memorize these.
Yep, you're supposed to remember them.
Okay.
Mad.
Okay.
Fear. Hate. Rage. Temper. Fury. Ire. Wrath. Happy. Fight. Hatred. Mean. Calm. Emotion. Enrage.
So basically my afternoon.
Wait, and stop it. The next set. Table. Sit. Legs. Seat. Couch. Desk. Recliner. Sofa. Wood. Cushion. Swivel. Stool. Sitting. Rocking. Bench.
Okay.
Now what I want you to do is, do you have a piece of paper there?
Yep.
Okay. I want you to try to write down as many of those as you can remember.
Goodness sakes. All right. Well, I remembered about 5 apiece.
Okay. You want to do more thinking on, or are you good with those 5?
Let's just go with this because I don't think I'm going to remember more. I mean, if I sat here and racked my brain, I might be able to squeeze out another couple, but that gets boring for entertainment purposes. So
okay. All right. Now I want you to take that list and flip it over so you can't see it. Okay. Are you ready? I'm going to ask you words, and you can tell me if they were in that list of words that I read or not. Not words you remember, just words that when I ask you if you call me saying them.
Okay.
Mad.
Mm-hmm.
Temper.
I don't remember temper.
Fight.
Yes.
Anger.
Yes.
Table.
No, I don't remember table.
Couch.
I don't remember couch.
Stool.
I want to say stool is one.
Chair.
Yes.
You have completed your task, sir.
Was I correct?
We were able to induce false memories in you.
Okay. So what did I not remember or remember?
Well, let me explain a little bit more about the test. I didn't want to get too much in detail until we conducted it with you.
Okay.
So basically what it is it's considered a false memory paradigm. Some researchers consider DRM illusions to be based on the activation of semantic memory networks in the brain and argue that such semantic gist-based false memory errors may actually be useful in some scenarios. And so basically what it is the list of words that I read all had something in common. So that your brain associated it with that. And then I asked you, did you hear this word? Do you remember? So I asked you about anger. You said, yes, I never said anger.
Wow. Okay.
And I asked you about chair. You said, yes, I never said chair.
Okay. So it's weird because that's exactly how my brain was just like, I remember all those things associated. And I specifically remember you said happy and calm, like in that first list of 15, because like they stood out. Like everything else was about being mad. So when you said anger, I was like, oh yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it's meant to do is stimulate that false memory. So we were at, and it actually worked pretty well. I was kind of impressed because I was trying not to hide my emotions because you can see me. Yeah. When you said anger and you're like, yeah, but I'm like, nope, didn't say that.
Yeah. Well, and again, in my head for just the briefest of a second, I was like, I remember because rage, wrath, all that other stuff. And I was like, well, I think that. And then I was like, is he already trying to trick me? I was like, nah, he wouldn't do it on the first one. So I just was like, you must be right. Yeah, you're fine. But no, but the thing is it doesn't feel like a card trick. Like I was like, oh yeah, I remember anger.
Exactly.
Just like Jason saying, couch and table were in there. It's weird because my brain was like associating more like material. Like I remember we were talking about sitting things.
Yep.
But it was more like on wood, cloth, stuff like that. Like the specific sitting apparatus, like my brain didn't lock onto. It was more like describing the stuff you would say as on a couch or on a chair.
So what words did you write down, just out of curiosity?
Happy, calm, because those ones stood out.
Okay.
Rage. I wrote anger. See, you planted the thing, anger, fight, and then another one was wood, bench, chair, swivel.
And again, I didn't say chair then, but you wrote down chair even.
See? Oh my God. Oh, it's terrible.
So this is actually a highly used cognitive task, which basically does it and produce a gist-based false memory in human subjects. Again, it's a very simplest form of it, and it's not meant to be anything beyond just kind of proving how our brains sometimes do trick us and provide us with false memories, basically. So
yeah. It is crazy. And when you're the person getting administered, you're like, oh, this feels weird. You know what I felt like? If you ever seen the movie Ghostbusters, like the original Ghostbusters with Bill Murray, the very first scene you see with him where he's shocking the guy, like I feel like that guy, like you're about to shock me. Of course, based on tonight, that scene never happened. And Bill Murray was never in the Ghostbusters.
He never shocked anybody. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, oh crap, that's it. I'm just going to commit myself to a psych ward right now. If you tell me Bill Murray never shocked that dude in Ghostbusters, I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing left for me to think about anymore. So,
well, on those notes, we were able to induce some false memories in Tom, and we always like to do some human experimentation on Tom, and it was fun to do that. So I appreciate your assistance with that, sir.
Thank you.
And we're going to do some more interesting stuff next week. Should we go into a little bit what we're going to do, or should we just let them find out?
I don't know. I'm okay with us letting them find out because we also sometimes do squeeze something extra in. So I don't want them to think we're fibbing to them. True. The second thing though is Ben, I am still getting requests sent to me about people wanting more and more medical mysteries.
Well, then they need to send us some medical mysteries and we will do some investigation. And there are lots of other ones that we can look into. So we will get that on the docket, sir.
I got an interesting message tonight from a person that listened to them in reverse order. Apparently they listened to the Toxic Lady and then they just found the Diet Love Pass and they're like, holy crap. I thought, or they knew about it. They're just like, man, you guys really made it interesting. And I was like, wow, thank you. It was like, it's still a really great feeling. And we've got, props before on other episodes, but man, the medical mysteries ones seem to really have rung a bell with people. So,
Well, we'll work on some more of that, and then we're going to do some more continuing education episodes. We're working tirelessly to get those courses built so we can get that information out to you and get some good CNEs built up for you while you're listening. You know, you're already listening to us, so you might as well get some credit for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're already forcing yourself to listen to me, so get something out of it while you're doing it.
On all those notes, hey, make sure you check us out next week. Also, we're going to do some more fun stuff. Like I said, we're not going to go into it, but tune in. It'll be fun. And it may involve Payne and Tom, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, people love Tom and Payne.
On that note, hey, wash your damn hands, wear your damn mask when you're supposed to, get your damn vaccine. Have a great week.
Hey, everybody, stay safe out there.
Practice swearing just to pass the time. Lately I see why I am alone. I caught some road rage and I thought of you, and all the many times you say I should have known. Took a class so I could find my G, find mediocrity's the best that I could do. Meant to shower, but I slept all day. It takes everything to live the life I choose. Oh, what do you say? I screw up everything. And oh, what can't you prove except there's only more for me to lose? Failure's not the same without you.